What's up, everybody? Peter X. This old Coffer here, and welcome to another episode of Classic Songs. Today, we're doing a song from one of my all-time favorite artists, Jimi Hendrix, and today we're going to do All Along the Watchtower. Now, originally, the song was first released by Bob Dylan on his John Wesley Harding album in 1967. A year later, Hendrix releases it on his last studio album. He only had 3 studio albums, and he, Band of Gypsies, the live album after he passed. There's not that many. I've only run across 3 or 4 live recordings of All Along the Watchtower, and 2 of them are very memorable. I can't remember the other 2, but just man. Dylan's version is mostly acoustic guitar and harmonica, and he does do the melody, and what would, if the song does have a hook, would be in the melody, with the harmonica. The lyrics, some people say the lyrics comes out of the book of Isaiah, chapter 21, verses 5 through 9. That Bob Dylan wrote. And the lyrics basically center around 17 lines of conversation between a joker and a thief. So very interesting. We'll get into that later. It was only 6 months, between, Dylan's releasing this and Hendrix releasing this. Now, Dylan was Hendrix's idol. I mean, he loved Hendrix, and Hendrix, just like Dylan, transformed the lyrics as far as John Lennon goes. I think John Lennon acknowledges that, but it's pretty well known. I mean, there's and Dylan had a big effect on the Beatles, in general, but particularly lyrically with Lennon. So there's, but there's the Beatles before meeting Dylan and the Beatles after meeting Dylan. And it's, Hendrix and Dylan only met once. I think it was, in passing in Greenwich Village, and obviously, they wanted to meet again, obviously, but it never happened. And I think, if I remember correctly, I was reading one of Hendrix's biographies. He's walking to Greenwich Village. Dylan is across the street. We're walking in a different direction. He crossed the street and introduced himself. I can't remember if he his music was out by then or not. But, just fascinating, and Hendrix was not shy about, saying how much he loved Dylan, and Dylan was the big influence from, obviously, blues guitarists, but the contemporary that really, drove Hendrix was Dylan. So the Rolling Stone Top 500 Songs of All Time, 2001, Hendrix's version drops in at 48 in 2020 when Hendrix's version is 40. So, Hendrix's version is the more famous version because, Dylan's version is pretty sparse. I mean, it's drums, the harmonica doing the melody, and acoustic guitar essentially doing what I call the bass or the foundation of the song. I can't even remember if there is a bass in the song. It might be just drums and that acoustic guitar. And, Dylan was the king of keeping it simple, but he definitely, kept it simple in this song. But yeah, hey, it works. Interesting. Okay, so this song, Dylan recorded this song following a motorcycle accident, and he had also the birth of 2 of his children. And he said he came up with the idea of the song during a thunderstorm. So a little interesting, some tidbits about Hendrix when he recorded the song. Noel Redding, who was, in the Band of Gypsies, and Hendrix's bass player did not like, Jimmy's version of it. So I think he literally went in and threw a bass down, and Jimmy did a lot of takes and really spent a lot of time on the song. No surprise, since Dylan is his idol and he wanted to, put his stamp on it, but do it the best way he could. But Noel Redding checked out very early, and I believe, Hendrix may have done, a little bit of the bass himself, but I do think there's still Noel Redding and bass in this. Yeah, but he did many takes. And the other interesting tidbit is following Hendrix's death, Dylan, since Hendrix's death, performed, his version that he performs live now is closer to Hendrix's version than his own original version. And it's, his respect for Hendrix and paying tribute to Hendrix. So, the respect went both ways, even though they met once. And from, my understanding is, when Dylan heard Hendrix's version of, All Along the Watchtower, it's like, wow, I wouldn't have even thought of doing that with this song. And so he liked Hendrix's version. I like both versions. I mean, it just reflects, who each of them are as artists. And it's not whose is better. I mean, yeah, Hendrix's version, charts better. But it's, Dylan's version still works. And I like Dylan's version, in its own way. I mean, Dylan was, and I think they both had the same take, lyrically. And so they, and I'll get that, in a minute when I talk about the lyrics. Yeah, but both of them basically, when it comes to the lyrics, they both had, dealt with crooked people in the music industry. I mean, Hendrix's, manager was notoriously bad and stole most of Jimi's money. I mean, Jimi was weirdly, and I say this in quotes, homeless when he died. He didn't, he didn't have an apartment. He didn't have a house. He did own, I think he got a really nice Mustang. I think he owned a Mustang, his guitars and clothes on his back. Now, on the flip side, his manager, put, Jimi up in very nice hotel rooms. So Jimi would get a nice luxury suite and stay there for a couple months or a month or a couple weeks when he's not touring or recording. Very weird, but that's not assets. I mean, Jimi's living well. He's not starving, but yeah, weird thing. But I talked, mentioned that, people, look at the lyrics and, a conversation between a joker and a thief that, sort of could come out of, the Bible. The lyrics are very nebulous and shapeless, and that's kind of what did the attraction of the lyrics into the song, because, a listener can extrapolate many things out of them. So it's almost like an abstract painting. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism there, and this fascinating symbolism, and a joker and a thief talking right there, that gets interesting. Like, wow. And so they both essentially, I think, had the same take, and the song was about getting ripped off by, bad managers or promoters or whatnot. So as I said earlier, Dylan's version is only 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Hendrix's version is 4 minutes long. The rhythm guitar, is at least 2 different rhythm guitar lines is done in acoustic guitar, and then Jimi comes in, does lead with the electric guitar. And I love how he kind of incorporates his slides, when he's about to really do some serious Hendrix shit, when it comes to the solos. I think, the solo in here is one of Jimi's best studio solos. I mean, Jimi's great, his best solos really were live when he was when he was doing improvisation. But as far as, which to me is even more, because you're on your own. There's no retake live. And so I've always respected, and I think that's why most lists of the great guitarists, Jimi's on top, because his best playing was live. And for most guitarists, they're recreating, stuff they did in the studio live and hewing to it fairly closely. But Jimmy was, would walk into, and do Fire, a song that's under 2.5 minutes long, I believe, in the studio, without a solo. If it had a solo, it was about a 20-minute solo, and stretches the solo into 3, 4, 5 minutes, and it's like, whoa. And Hendrix didn't know exactly what he was going to do when he went out of the solo. So, every solo for Hendrix live was different because he just would go out there and wing it. I liked, Jimmy's singing on this song. I mean, Jimmy, hated his singing, and a lot of times he would have, kick the studio engineer out or have him turn around so they couldn't see him. And this, this was still the era when, the Queen's English reigned as far as, who was considered a great singer. I mean, Jimmy did not sound like he was, a middle class black person, or he sounded like he was from the hood, and that was, Motown would not, Jimmy couldn't have been a singer at Motown. He sounded, Marvin Gaye, yeah, he sounded black, and Stevie sounded black, but the quality of that voice was still friendly to white ears. And Stax kind of broke that. Isaac Hayes sounded like he came out of the hood, but it wasn't until the 90s, when hip hop drops and motherfuckers weren't worried about their diction, just ran with it, where these alternative ways of speaking and the tone and the regular quality of your voice for those alternatives could get heard and whatnot. So think, Pop Smoke. Now the blues was different. But what they did is they got the blues and they cleaned it up. Okay, let's get us other than, Janis Joplin. Janis wasn't she had her own take. She was a white blues singer. But, if you're going to do a Coco Taylor, with a white woman, we're going to get, what's her name? Who cleans it up and who has proper diction and whatnot. Same thing. We don't want Howlin' Wolf. Smokestack Lightning. Well, look. Eric Clapton. We'll have Clapton. Clapton is friendlier to our ears than Howlin' Wolf. Now, Eric Clapton would say, fuck that. I wish I could sing like Howlin' Wolf. Paul McCartney, mimicked and then tried to sing like Little Richard. The Beatles opened up for Little Richard when he was in Hamburg, when he came through Hamburg, Germany. And, if you listen to Hey Jude, and how Paul's singing there, he's doing his Little Richard thing. And it was interesting, side note, well, the Get Back documentary and hearing just, Paul McCartney wing it. And Paul, outside the studio and in practicing, Paul was a very soulful singer. And it was, as a singer rooted much more in the blues, that didn't come out very much in the studio. But anyway, we digress. But I think, history is caught up to Hendrix. Hendrix is now, is a respected singer. I think, All Along the Watchtower is, some of Jimmy's best singing. I think Purple Haze is very good. I think, Hey Joe, but, he just had, he sang this with such emotion because, his fucking manager was an asshole and was robbing him blind, and it came out in the singing in this song. But just love this song. It is a Hendrix classic. I had to do it. So, I think that's all I have. So let me hit this close. Got 5 albums of my own, that's connected here on this YouTube channel, but it's Also on all the streaming services. I recorded in the name Exodus, X-O-D-U-S. My first album was called Book One. Some of, you put in Exodus in some of these streaming services and it's clean and it's just me, and other ones it's not. Even here on YouTube, there's a couple of Exoduses, clustered with me that aren't me. And, Apple gets it right. Spotify gets it right. Tidal, they got a couple folks on there who aren't me. I think Amazon has a couple of other Exoduses on there. Look at Book One and look at folks, the 317 Volume 1 and 2 and my other 3 works. I also write science fiction and fantasy novels. I have 2 novels and novella on Amazon. I write under the name Peter Exodus O'Coffer. So thank you again for coming through, and I will see you next episode.